when we have to interact with our specific person or anyone that you're manifesting, or anyone that you have to intermingle with in the 3D, and they're reminding you that reality hasn't changed yet and you're not who you have been telling yourself you are. Anytime we've got to intermingle before what we're desiring or what we're manifesting fully shows up in reality, let's talk about how to deal with that in the 3D today. Hello, my fellow flawless, limitless, sexy, sassy, saucy HBICs. How are you on this lovely morning, afternoon, or evening? How are you all? I hope you're all doing fabulous. I hope you're all choosing to be the versions of yourself that have exactly what you want. I hope that's what you're doing. I know that's what I'm doing. I choose it every day. My feet don't touch the carpet on the side of my bed before I choose, before I remember who I am aware of being. Every day. Not a day goes by that I don't do that. Why? Because I like getting what I want. I like my reality reflecting to me the things I desire, the life I have been manifesting. And that's my way of doing it. That's how I remind myself now. Outside of that, if you're new to this channel, how you doing? I'm Kimberly, and I consider myself an expert in manifestations. Why? I always want to say expert. It's an expert. It's an excerpt from the book. It's an not acting very expert-like, am I? Well, I am in manifestation. Oh, shit. In a lot of things in life I am, right? It's who I choose to be, right? Every version of me exists. But if you are brand new to this craziness, to this sass, this is our first encounter. Well, how you doing? Welcome to my piece of the internet. That was entertain and internet in one word that my mind just did. So there you go. You're welcome for that. This is my side of the internet. And if you're new, I would love for us to be friends. I would love for you to subscribe and come back and see me. And please let me know in the comments below that you are new here, because if I see that comment, you will hear back from me. Just saying. Outside of that, if you find that you would like to work with me in any way, shape, or form, whether that's regular coaching, emergency coaching, all of that information is in the Dropbox below, including the info regarding my 3 channel memberships, which I highly encourage you to check out. The VIP, the Advanced Manifestors. That is the group where we deep dive manifestation. We talk about everything and anything in that group. Nothing really is off limits, so long as it has to do with conscious manifestation. Thank you very much. That group gives you access to all of the channel memberships. One of the others is the exclusive lives. That is the Zhuzh only. It is the Success Stories and Tips and Tricks group. It's always fun. It always feels like we're hanging out in my living room, having a little cocktail night, chilling and sharing. And it's a really feel-good group. I'm just going to say it. It's a feel-good group. I also have the hot seat. And the hot seat is where you can get your bum into that hot seat and ask me anything you want. It's like a 10 to 15 minute little coaching call with me. It's a little taste of what coaching is like. So 3 channel memberships for your entertainment purposes. Okay? It's like having a Zhuzh. It's like having a friend. You know, it's kind of like hanging out with ChatGPT, except it's humans. So we get the emotions and feelings that you might not get through AI. That's what the memberships serve to do. Okay? All right, let's get into it. So, got a good comment today, and I want to talk about it. This was left on one of my most recent videos. I live with my SP. Which version am I with? I have a complete movie in my head with beautiful images and work with my self-concept and still do robot affirmations. I think that's the word you were looking for. You did say robot. I'm assuming robot or robotic. Just saying. I sometimes see in my SP exactly what I am affirming, but it hasn't come to a conclusion yet. Because I am trying to accept the new identity with my SP that is not real, Can you help me further? I know I need to change the assumptions that are going on at home that are the same as my identity. It's just always so hard for me. Well, first of all, let's start off with a little lip gloss. Let's start off with, we are going to stop saying that this is hard for you. We're going to immediately, I know that seems like I'm splitting hairs, or maybe all that, not that important. It's important. It's important. It's who you're identifying as. Why would we ever want to make things more difficult for ourselves? We don't. So we want to start seeing ourselves as this is getting easier and easier, easier and easier. And you're seeing the connections in the 3D. You're seeing the evidence in the 3D. And my friend, you are already seeing evidence. You've said that you've already seen little bits and pieces of the new we'll say the new identity of your specific person as in the new version. But let's remember something. To change anything in 3D reality, we change our identity. In other words, we change who we believe we are, what we are aware of. And I don't know that it's talked about enough, but when you have to interact with your SP before you're really firmly planted or firmly in conviction of the new identity, it can feel like freaking shaky ground, and it can feel really frustrating because it can throw you off, especially if we have not started practicing detachment. And let me just tell you something. There's all sorts of opinions on detachment, and for some, they don't like the idea. Well, I do, because it works. It makes life a little easier. It makes the 3D a little easier to navigate. But detachment doesn't necessarily mean that you can't think about what you're manifesting. If you're not new to my channel, you have heard me talk about that quite enough. It's going to be a little repetitious, but detachment, to me, what it feels like in my mind, outside of the obvious, which is what I tend to say, I don't let what I see in 3D reality, I don't let anything out here, over here is 3D reality. I don't let the stuff out here tell me who I am. So if a specific person is showing up not being his or her new self, I don't let that tell me, well, then I must not be my new self yet. The change of reality must not have happened yet. I don't talk like that to myself. Why? Because number one, that doesn't feel good. And number two, I know that I am pure, unadulterated consciousness. And I have the authority to decide who I am. So why would I ever choose a version of me that doesn't feel empowered? Why would I deliberately ever label myself as an old self? The old me. The me not experiencing what I want. We don't want to do that. That is not helpful. Okay? It's not the end all be all, but it's helpful when you start viewing reality as it's already changing. Things are already changing. Now, so detachment feels like to me, number one, what I just said. I don't let reality, to the best of my ability, I am far from perfect. I don't let that dictate to me who I am. And in another, not sure I've ever talked about this before, and if I have, it's probably in one of my live streams. I feel sincerely like I kind of wander off to my imagination all the time. I live in my imagination, which makes me feel in a weird way that I'm separate. Like I'm separate from 3D reality. Like there is an armed guard fence around me, but obviously up here, from me to reality. Now, granted, let's just be real. I am reality. You are your reality, okay? But that's how I feel. So when things don't look the way I want them to, I try to not let that make me feel like there's been an attack and that I've slipped. Like I've slipped back into old thinking, or I've slipped back to the old self. I try not to. When I'm experiencing something that is the opposite of what I would prefer, my old self would immediately want to label that. well, this is unfavorable. This isn't what I want. This must mean something. And then I would give the definition that this means. This isn't working. This hasn't changed yet. I'm still my old self. I'm doing something wrong. We don't want to talk like that to ourselves anymore. That's not helpful. And who you decide you are is the number one authority. It's the number one boss. It's the damn CEO of your life. So when I'm experiencing the opposite, I try not to let that thing control me or control what I'm focusing on. Now, I'm not saying that's always easy. I'm saying that when a specific person is not showing up the way I prefer, I don't immediately think, oh my God, what's wrong? Oh my God, I'm losing my relationship. I'm losing my SP. This is never going to change. This is just who he is. No. Nuh-uh. I have been on this journey long enough, and I know that some of you are new, and maybe you don't have that strengthened thinking, but you will. You will. And you'll come to see that not every terrible circumstance automatically means something terrible to you or to your manifestation. So when SP is showing up in a way we don't prefer, your response to it is the boss. It's the number one authority. And I really, really mean that. So you have to ask yourself, how am I responding to SP not being the way I want? Am I responding like my old self would? Am I panicking? Am I overthinking? Am I staying hyper focused on it? Am I trying to analyze it and trying to figure out why this must be in my reality at this moment so I can start digging for more beliefs? No, I don't do that. And I hope you're not either. What I prefer to do is, and this just helps me, it helps me feel better. If anything is showing up, if SP is acting, we'll say different, unfavorable, I remind myself of who I am, as in who I'm choosing to be. And I see that circumstance, that moment, as something that I just don't understand why it's here. But it must be to my benefit. It must be leading me to exactly what I want. The fulfillment of my relationship manifestation. Now, when we have circumstances that are, so astronomically unfavorable, it might be hard to do that. It might be hard to just get your mind off what is right in front of you. But even so, we don't have to run back to the old thinking, to the old programming, to the old version of ourselves. We don't have to do that every time something comes in. We don't have to immediately assume that this isn't working, because it's always working. And if you know you're focused on the self you want to be, then reality must rearrange itself to show me that, to be the new reflection. And possibly when SP is showing up in an unfavorable way, there's a very good possibility that that is nothing but the part of either the old state or the old self filtering its way out of your reality as the new one collapses in. But your perception in that moment is going to decide for you how you navigate through it. I think it's also favorable that when we see things that are unfavorable, we really kind of separate ourselves, like I mentioned earlier, getting that army around us of protection so that we can think, am I just comparing this moment to a previous moment in my life and making the assumption that there's a connection, that it's another pattern? Or can I see that, wait a minute, why am I immediately labeling this as unfavorable? Why am I doing that? Why do I automatically assume that this is the shitty version of my specific person? Why do I immediately go there? Let's just say, for example, your specific person is acting a little colder than usual today. Perhaps your old self would immediately see that version of your person, the person being cold, and immediately think of previous moments where they acted cold and that led to a breakup. That's what my old self used to do. If we know that we're not choosing to be the old version of ourselves, and we know damn well we are focused on being the new version, the version of ourselves in a loving, fulfilling, committed relationship, then why do we automatically have to assume that there is a connection to that old self, to that old reality, to the old experiences? Let's not give it that label anymore. Let's stand in the authority of being source and give it a new label. Give it the label that I might not understand why this is here today, but I'm standing in conviction that I am who I say I am. And that little moment, that circumstance, that moment of SP being cold is still somehow, some way connected to me being in the fulfilling relationship. Think about the reason why maybe the logical part of you immediately just said, no, I can't do that. And I know some of you just did. Some of you thought, yeah, but Kim, you don't understand. Like, he's done this before. So I know where it leads. I know that as soon as he starts acting like this, it leads to A, B, and C. So I know, you know from what? You know from what? You know from previous experiences that you've allowed yourself to put them in a special category of this is when something bad happens. This coldness adds to a pattern. You're not that version of yourself anymore. You're not that self. So you can't possibly be experiencing the identical circumstances. So those previous experiences are quite useless to the new relationship, to the fulfilling relationship. They're useless. They're nothing but frames out of the infinite anymore. That's all they are. Frames, moments. So really, what the message I'm really trying to get is, in the moment that you're having the instant response of, I don't like this, this isn't good. Why? Why don't you like it? Why? Why do you think it's not good or that it's unfavorable? Why? Because you're responding to it out of habit. Maybe your body had a physical response to it. So the moment you get this feeling, you connect it to a past experience. So you assume that this is going to be bad too. It's just habit from an old you. A you that you're probably never, ever going to be again. And I say probably only because as source, you can choose to be any version of yourself. Nothing is off limits. But why would we? Why would we ever go back to a version of ourselves that manifested shit relationships? We wouldn't. So which version of your SP is here? That was your initial question. He or she is exactly the version you decide for yourself that he or she is. You, as source, are making that decision. And if you're brand new to conscious manifestation and you're not sure you really buy into being source just yet, I get it. But the more you search into that and search how you feel when you hear that, knowing that your conscious awareness is the person driving the vehicle at all times, the less afraid of circumstances you become. You're deciding for yourself who you are. You're deciding for yourself who SP is. I know it's very easy to remember that, especially when things are unfavorable, but you're in charge. It's kind of like that sassy statement, like, because I friggin' said so. Because I said so, right? Right? Isn't that something parents say? I know I've said that to my son at some point in his journey. Like, go do your homework. Why? Because I said so. Now, I know that's probably looked at as a negative, but I'm just saying, when you make a decision on which self you are being, when you allow yourself to be in imagination, thinking about your life being the way you want it to be, you have the authority to decide or to say, I am my new self. So therefore, this is my new reality. And there is no circumstance with my specific person that I have to fear. They must reflect my new self. I might not see it exactly the way I prefer in this moment, but I know I will. Why? Because I said so. And that's all you need to be aware of. It's because you said so. So once you've made that decision, that that's who you are, everything else is meaningless. And if I were you, I'd be giving it the meaning that it is somehow, some way connected to your total fulfillment of that beautiful relationship and the amazing version of your specific person, because you said so, because it will. Anything you're manifesting out there, my friends, it doesn't have to be a specific person. If you claim you are a self, then everything you're experiencing is happening to your benefit because you said so. Even when your analytical, logical human self can't agree with that, well, then I ask you, why can't you agree with it? What are you using as evidence? What are you thinking about? What old experience are you remembering that you're allowing the comparison of the two to tell you it can't be true? Because that's all we ever do. We think about past experiences, we compare them to the new experiences, and we make an assumption based on how the old experience worked out. And when we're doing that, we're basing things on the experience of a less than favorable version of ourselves, a very much more limited version of ourselves. You're here to be happy. You're here to experience joy and fulfillment and to know yourself as source. And that means taking authority over yourself and reality and knowing that everything must reflect that inner decision because you said so as source. So SP can't deflect. SP can't decide, I don't want you, girl. That's only if you believe that's possible for you. And try to remember, there's infinite versions of you. So therefore, infinite versions of your specific person. We're not forcing someone to be with us. We're choosing a version of them that does, that wants the same thing. So you're deciding which version is here. So what to do in those situations? If you're starting to feel yucky, you got to ask yourself, what are you thinking about? What are you focusing on? What are you giving too much power to? And then return to your decision to be exactly who you want to be. And on that note, I'll see you tomorrow.